Alright, now we'll be testing Horizon Zero Dawn on the Ryzen 5 3600 and 1066 gig. This is the original preset, the preset that is available on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. We're running at 1080p resolution. VSync is off and I have unlocked the FPS, but this game is hard locked at 60 FPS, so no matter how low I set the graphics, the game isn't going to run anything more than 60 FPS. As you can see, the game is running fine. It will stutter a bit because of the texture loading, and here you can see that this game is using around 13 gigs of RAM. So if you're someone who's running less than 16 gigs or 8 gigs, I would suggest you to upgrade your RAM and get a 16 gig kit. If you have more than 16 gigs, then there is no issues, but as of now this game is not well optimized. You can see that we are not using our GPU to the fullest, and the RAM usage is very high, but the game looks absolutely fine. There's some flickers and stutters, which is usual. I hope they release a patch so that the game runs much smoother on lower end hardware. So right now we're at the end of the benchmark. It will end soon, so let's see the average performance. So as you can see, the game ran perfectly at around 60 FPS. VSync was off, but the game couldn't go past 60. Now we'll test it at the maximum preset. I'm just going to change the clouds because it is an unnecessary graphical setting, because it doesn't add much to the game, but it uses a lot of GPU power. So I'm going to set the clouds to the lowest and everything else to the maximum. Now let's see how it performs on this graphical settings. Okay, so as you're seeing right now, the game is loading all the textures. So there were no textures before, but the textures have loaded in now. You won't find this kind of texture pop in the game as much, because after loaded it for the first time, there isn't much of a difference. So if you can properly see, there isn't much difference from the original preset. The lighting and the shadows are a bit better. The texture has a little bit more depth, but I wouldn't say it has a lot more details as before. The game obviously was made so that even at the lowest graphical settings you would have a good gaming experience. Even at the lowest settings, I feel like that the game has a lot of good textures, high-end textures, and if you're someone who wants to play this game at 60 FPS, which I would highly recommend because the game is much smoother and has a lot less stutters at 60 FPS, I would suggest you to play it at the lowest settings if your graphics card can't process the textures. You can try some custom presets to see at what you can get away with and still play the game at 60 FPS. Now, due to poor optimization, we're still not using the maximum capacity of our GPU. I think with proper patches, this game could run much better on even lower end hardware. Right now it's really hard to play this game with anything that has less than 2 gigs of VRAM, or even at 2 gigs of VRAM, like the GTX 1050 or 750 Ti. This game doesn't run much well. So on the ultra quality presets, we're getting around 40 to 45 FPS on average. Now the game runs much better than the benchmark, because the benchmark is actually really stressing. So if you're playing the game on the ultra quality, it will run much better than the benchmark. So now we're testing the Gears of War 5 on the GTX 1060 and Ryzen 5 3600. Everything is set to ultra, the maximum quality preset. Now let's check out the benchmarks. This is also a pretty graphically intensive game. So as you can see, we're hovering around the low 50s and the high 40s. The game, according to me, this game doesn't really look much different from the medium to ultra settings. Yes, the textures are much higher, more clear, but if you're running around very quickly and a lot of action is going on, you can't really tell the difference between the ultra and the medium settings. So now our FPS has gone up to the 60s. If you're having trouble playing the game at a locked 60 FPS, I would suggest you to lower the graphical settings to high or medium. You can and lock it to 60, and I think you will probably get around a 60 FPS average.